What happens when the world we think we know unravels right in front of us? When a mask we've carefully put on for years is pulled off, exposing the raw truth, the kind of truth that changes lives. That's the story of Ray Dalton, the man who built his company from the ground up, only to discover something that would shake his world forever. Ray Dalton wasn't just any CEO. He was the kind of man you'd call a self-made success. At 45, he had climbed every rung of the ladder, fought off every obstacle, and created a multi-million-dollar manufacturing empire. His company, Dalton Industries, was a household name, and his story was one that many admired. He had a family, a beautiful home, and a business that spanned the nation. He was the epitome of the American dream, or so it seemed. Ray's day-to-day life was filled with board meetings, expansion plans, and client calls. He had a well-oiled machine running behind the scenes, and things always seemed to go according to plan. But Ray had grown distant. He had lost touch with the very people who made his business thrive, the workers on the ground, the people who poured their sweat into the products his company produced. He had read about the struggles of workers in factories, but it always seemed distant. He assumed they were just part of the business, nothing more. But something changed in Ray. He could feel the gap growing between him and his company, and he didn't like it. He didn't want to be the CEO who only showed up at fancy events, shaking hands with people he barely knew. He wanted to understand the heart of his business, the people who really made it tick. So he decided to go undercover. He dressed in simple work clothes, putting on a pair of old jeans and a faded t-shirt. He shaved off his well-groomed beard, letting his hair grow a little longer to blend in. He told his top executives he was going to check on a new project, but in reality, he was slipping into the factory floor unnoticed. Ray wasn't going to be Ray Dalton, the CEO. He was going to be just another worker. As he walked through the factory, he felt the hum of machines all around him. The sound was constant, rhythmic, but there was something unsettling about it. It wasn't the soothing rhythm of progress. It felt more like a silent cry, a plea for attention. The workers hardly noticed him. They were too busy with their tasks, too caught up in the grind to pay attention to the man in jeans. Ray made his way to the assembly line. He watched as workers assembled products with tired hands, their eyes fixed on their tasks. But then he saw something that stopped him dead in his tracks. One of the workers, a man in his mid-30s, was sitting at his station, his hands trembling slightly as he worked. There was a look of exhaustion in his eyes, a deep weariness that spoke of more than just a long shift. Ray moved closer, trying to understand. The man looked up, his gaze meeting Ray's. There was a flicker of recognition in the worker's eyes, but it quickly vanished. Ray was just another guy on the factory floor, no different from the others. But then, as the man worked, Ray heard it. A voice, barely above a whisper, but clear enough to reach Ray's ears. "Please, help me." Ray froze. His heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if the man had meant to speak those words aloud or if it was just his mind playing tricks. But there it was again, a quiet plea, like the sound of someone trapped in a cage. Ray's eyes widened, his mind racing. What was going on? Why was this worker begging for help? He had to know more. So he walked up to the man, pretending to adjust a piece of equipment near his station. As he did, he glanced at the worker, trying to see if he could make sense of what was happening. The man's hands were shaking more now, and his face was pale. There was a visible strain in his eyes, a tension that made Ray's stomach twist. Ray leaned in closer, trying to make sense of it. "Are you okay?" Ray asked, his voice low. The worker looked at him for a moment, as though deciding whether or not to speak. Then, in a voice laced with desperation, he said, "I've been here for years. Every day, I wake up to the same thing. Long hours, little pay, and I can't do it anymore. I can't keep pretending I'm okay." Ray felt a sharp pain in his chest. He had never heard anyone speak like this. This man was trapped, not just in his job, but in a life he couldn't escape. The weight of the words hit Ray hard, and for the first time in years, he felt the crushing weight of responsibility. Ray didn't know what to say. He wasn't prepared for this. He had been so caught up in building his empire, so focused on expanding and increasing profits, that he had lost sight of what mattered. He had ignored the cries of his workers, assuming that everything was fine. But now, standing here on the factory floor, he realized how wrong he had been. "I'm sorry," the worker continued, his voice breaking. "I just can't do this anymore. My body, my mind, they're breaking down and no one cares." Ray swallowed hard. He wanted to say something, anything that would make it better, but he didn't have the right words. He wasn't prepared for this level of pain. The worker's voice echoed in his mind, and he realized something that would change everything. This wasn't just one worker. It was an entire system, a system that had been designed to break people down, to push them to their limits, to turn them into machines. And Ray had built it. He had helped create this culture, this cycle of exhaustion and despair. As Ray stood there, a decision began to form in his mind. He had a choice. He could walk away, go back to his comfortable life, and pretend he didn't hear the cries of his workers. Or he could do something real, something that would change the way his company operated. "I'm going to fix this," Ray said quietly, his voice filled with determination. But as the worker looked up at him, there was a hint of disbelief in his eyes. "You're going to fix this? You're the CEO. You don't know what it's like here. You don't know what we go through." Ray swallowed. He had never felt more humbled in his life. But that wasn't the end of the story. The real twist came when Ray returned to his office that day and dug deeper into the factory's records. What he discovered shook him to his core. The factory was not just a place of overworked employees. It was a place where the system itself had been rigged to exploit them. The worker Ray had spoken to, Mark, was just one of many. The company had been cutting corners, overworking employees, and failing to provide the benefits they deserved. Ray had been blinded by success, ignoring the signs of a broken system that had been festering beneath the surface. Ray decided that he would take action. He would change his company from the inside out, starting with the workers who had made it all possible. He would give them the respect they deserved, the support they needed, and the chance to lead a better life. It wasn't going to be easy. The road ahead would be long and full of obstacles, but Ray was ready for it. He had learned the most important lesson of all. Success wasn't just about profits and expansion. It was about people. Real people with real struggles who needed a leader who would stand up for them. And Ray Dalton, the man who built an empire, was about to rebuild it, with heart, with integrity, and with a vision for a future where no worker would ever feel forgotten again. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to show some extra love, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks.